I stayed silent while my own family destroyed my life, because I needed them to think I was weak. Standing there in my wedding gown, watching my sister's face turn crimson with rage, I realized something. The worst part about betrayal isn't the act itself. It's the years you spend preparing for it. My name is Emily Thompson. I'm 27, and I grew up in a Connecticut suburb where appearances mattered more than truth. My sister Madison was 3 years older and born with a gift, the ability to make everyone worship her while stepping on anyone who got too close. Growing up, she was flawless. Perfect grades that got framed, tennis trophies that lined the mantelpiece, a smile that made our parents forget I existed in the same room. I was the other daughter, the funny one who told jokes at family dinners while Madison collected compliments, the messy one who couldn't keep her room organized while Madison's looked like a catalog spread. There's a specific kind of pain that comes from being invisible in your own home. Not neglected, that would be easier to explain. Just less. Always less important. Less talented. Less worth listening to. When I was 12, I made the honor roll for the first time. I ran home with the certificate, hands shaking with excitement. My mother was in the kitchen with Madison, discussing her acceptance into some advanced program. I waited for a pause in their conversation. Waited for someone to ask about my day. Madison glanced at my certificate. Oh, honor roll? That's the minimum requirement for my program. She turned back to Mom. Anyway, they want me to give a speech at the ceremony. Mom nodded, already mentally planning Madison's outfit. I put the certificate in my backpack. Never showed it to anyone again. That's how it worked in our house. Madison didn't have to be cruel. She just had to exist, and I'd disappear. But I adapted. Became the easygoing one. The one who didn't cause problems. The one who laughed off the small cuts because making a scene would only prove I was too sensitive. By the time I turned 25, I'd convinced myself I was over it. I had my own life now. My own career in marketing. My own apartment in Hartford. And most importantly, I had Ryan. Ryan was different. He saw me. Not as Madison's sister or my parents' backup daughter, just me. When he proposed last year at a small bed and breakfast in the Berkshires, I cried for an hour. Not because I was surprised, but because someone finally chose me first. The wedding planning started immediately. I wanted something intimate but beautiful. A vineyard in Vermont, autumn colors, close friends and family. Nothing too flashy. Just ours. Madison called 2 days after I got engaged. I want to help plan everything, she said, her voice bright with enthusiasm. Sisters should do this together. I should have felt happy. Should have seen it as an olive branch after years of distance. Instead, I felt that old familiar pit in my stomach. The same one I got when she complimented my outfit right before pointing out it would look better on someone taller. Or when she offered to help with my college essays, then spent an hour explaining everything I'd done wrong. But I said yes. Because that's what I always did. That would be great, I told her, forcing warmth into my voice. Perfect. This is going to be unforgettable, Emily. I promise. When I hung up, Ryan asked if I was okay. Yeah, I lied. Just excited. What I didn't tell him was that I'd heard something in Madison's voice. Something familiar and cold. I just couldn't figure out what she was planning yet. The first red flag appeared 3 weeks into wedding planning. Madison had inserted herself into every decision. Flowers, catering, seating arrangements. She had opinions on everything. At first, I told myself she was just being helpful. Older sister energy. Maybe she'd matured. But then she started asking questions about Ryan. How did you two meet again? She asked one afternoon while we looked at invitation samples. We were sitting in a coffee shop in West Hartford, surrounded by cardstock options I couldn't tell apart. At a conference in Boston. I told you this already. Right. And he works in software development. Finance. He's an analyst. She nodded slowly, typing something into her phone. Does he travel a lot for work? Sometimes. Why? Just wondering how you'll handle that after you're married. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Long distance can be hard on relationships. The comment sat wrong with me. Ryan barely traveled, maybe once every few months. Why would Madison think it was an issue? A week later, she volunteered to coordinate with the venue. You're so busy with work, she said. Let me handle the technical stuff. Sound system, projections for the reception, all that boring logistics. I hesitated. Something about giving her that much control felt dangerous. But Ryan squeezed my hand. That's really generous, Madison. Thank you. And just like that, I was trapped. Saying no would make me look paranoid or ungrateful. Okay, I said quietly. That would help. Madison's smile widened. I'll take care of everything. You won't have to worry about a single thing. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying her expression, the way her eyes had lit up when I agreed. It reminded me of something from childhood, but I couldn't place it. Then I remembered. I was 16. Madison had offered to help me prepare for a presentation in my history class. Spent hours coaching me, fixing my note cards, building my confidence. I walked into class feeling ready. Halfway through my presentation, the teacher stopped me. Emily, this is nearly word for word what Madison presented in her AP class last month. Did you copy her work? I hadn't. She'd given me her old material and told me it was research help. I got a 0 and a lecture about academic integrity. Madison apologized later, said it was an honest mistake. But I'd seen her face in the hallway after. She'd been smiling. The memory made my chest tight. Over the next month, Madison became impossible to avoid. She joined me for dress fittings, showed up at the venue walkthrough, started having coffee with Ryan's college friends, people she'd never met before. I'm just trying to get to know your world, she explained when I asked why she'd had lunch with Ryan's former roommate. I want to be a better sister. Ryan thought it was sweet. She's really making an effort, babe. Maybe you two are finally connecting. I wanted to believe him. Wanted to think I was wrong about the cold calculation behind her eyes. But then I noticed the questions. She asked Ryan's best man about our relationship timeline. Asked my college roommate if I'd ever struggled with commitment. Asked the photographer if she'd ever covered a wedding that got called off. Each question was casual, innocent on the surface. But together, they formed a pattern. She was building something. I just didn't know what. 2 months before the wedding, Madison requested something specific from the venue coordinator. I want to give a surprise speech, she told me over dinner. Something really special. But I'll need access to the AV system to add some photos and music. Can you ask them to set that up? My stomach dropped. What kind of speech? It's a surprise. She laughed. Come on, don't ruin it. Just trust me. Trust her. Those words echoed in my head for days. I told the venue coordinator to give Madison access. But that night, I made a decision. I wasn't going to be blindsided again. Not this time. If Madison was planning something, I needed to know what it was. So I started watching. Waiting. And 3 weeks before the wedding, while Madison was at our parents' house for Sunday dinner, I let myself into her apartment. Her laptop was on the kitchen counter, still open. What I found in her email made my hands shake. The subject line read, Wedding Day Plan, Final Confirmation. My finger hovered over the trackpad. This was crossing a line. Reading someone's private emails. Violating trust. But Madison had violated mine my entire life. And every instinct I had screamed that whatever was in this email would destroy me if I didn't read it first. I clicked. The email was sent to an address I didn't recognize. Email protected. I scrolled down, my heart hammering against my ribs. Madison, everything is set for the 15th. I've confirmed with the venue that I'll have full access to the microphone and projection system during the ceremony. Timing is crucial. I need to interrupt right after the vows, before they're officially married. Vanessa, are you sure about this? It seems extreme. Madison, she doesn't deserve him. She never deserved anything she's gotten. This needs to happen publicly, so everyone sees who she really is. Vanessa, and you're sure the evidence will be convincing? Madison, I've been building the story for 2 months. Text messages, timeline inconsistencies, even a few photos that could be interpreted the wrong way. Ryan's friends already have doubts. I made sure of that. When I reveal everything at the wedding, it'll look undeniable. I had to read it twice before the words fully registered. Madison wasn't just planning to ruin my wedding. She was framing me for cheating on Ryan. I scrolled up, searching for earlier messages. Found the thread from 8 weeks ago. Madison, I need your help with something. My sister is marrying a man who's too good for her, and I think she's been unfaithful. Would you be willing to confirm some details if I reach out? Vanessa. Wait, your sister Emily? We met at that conference in Boston. She seemed really sweet. Madison. That's the version she shows people. Trust me, there's another side. I've seen her with someone else. I just need corroboration so Ryan doesn't marry her without knowing the truth. Vanessa. Ryan's ex-girlfriend from college. They dated for 6 months 3 years ago, stayed friendly afterward. She'd even sent us a congratulations card when we got engaged. And Madison had weaponized her. I kept scrolling. Found message after message of Madison carefully constructing a narrative. She created fake scenarios, times when I was supposedly unavailable, that actually lined up with work trips. She'd taken innocent photos from my social media and added context that made them look suspicious. There was a draft document titled, Wedding Speech, Final Version. I opened it. My vision blurred as I read. She'd written a 7-minute presentation detailing my alleged affair. Named a coworker I'd grabbed lunch with twice. Included evidence of late-night texts that were actually me working on a campaign deadline. Even mentioned a weekend trip to New York that Ryan knew about, but Madison had framed it as a secret rendezvous. The speech ended with, "I'm sorry to do this here, but I couldn't let my sister marry you under false pretenses. You deserve the truth, Ryan. Everyone here deserves to know who she really is." I closed the laptop before I threw up. For several minutes, I just sat there in Madison's kitchen, trying to process what I discovered. This wasn't sibling rivalry. This was systematic destruction. She'd planned every detail. Contacted Ryan's ex, manipulated his friends with careful questions designed to plant seeds of doubt. Secured access to the wedding venue's equipment, so she could turn my ceremony into a public execution. And the worst part? It would work. Ryan trusted his friends. If they expressed concerns, he'd listen. If his ex-girlfriend corroborated Madison's story, he'd question everything. And if Madison revealed all of this in front of 200 guests, complete with a PowerPoint presentation of evidence, the humiliation would be total. Even if I proved my innocence later, the damage would be permanent. Our wedding would be remembered as the day I got exposed as a cheater. Ryan's family would always wonder. Our friends would whisper. Madison would win. Again. I took photos of everything with my phone. Every email. Every draft. Every piece of her manufactured evidence. Then I cleared the browser history, so she wouldn't know I'd been there. When I got home, Ryan was watching television. "How was your day?" he asked, pulling me down next to him on the couch. I almost told him everything right then. Almost showed him the emails and explained what Madison was planning. But something stopped me. If I confronted Madison now, she'd adapt. Change her strategy. Find another way to destroy me. And if I told Ryan, he'd want to handle it himself. Talk to Madison, uninvite her. Maybe even postpone the wedding. All of those options meant Madison would know I'd caught her. And she'd escape consequences.
She always did. No.
For once in my life, I needed to be the one 3 steps ahead. So I kissed Ryan's cheek and said, it was good. Just wedding stuff. That night, I started planning. If Madison wanted a public spectacle, I'd give her one. Just not the kind she expected. The next morning, I called the venue coordinator. "Hi, this is Emily Thompson. I wanted to add something special to our AV setup for the ceremony." Bethany, the coordinator, sounded enthusiastic. "Of course. What did you have in mind?" "My sister Madison already requested access for a surprise speech. I'd like to add my own surprise element, a slideshow during the reception. But here's the thing, I need it set up, so I can trigger it from my phone if needed." "Is that possible?" "Absolutely. We have wireless control capabilities. I can configure it, so you have access to the entire system." "Perfect. And Bethany? This is really important. Madison can't know about this. It's a surprise for her, too." She laughed. "Your secret's safe with me. Siblings keeping secrets at weddings, I love it." If only she knew. Over the next 2 weeks, I built my counter-presentation in stolen moments. Late nights after Ryan fell asleep. Lunch breaks at work. Early mornings before he woke up. I compiled every screenshot of Madison's emails. Organized them chronologically to show the progression of her plan. Added her draft speech. Included the fake evidence she'd created, side by side with the real explanations. The slideshow was devastating.
Clear.
Undeniable. But I needed more than just Madison's plot against me. I needed insurance that would prevent her from spinning this as a misunderstanding or a joke gone wrong. So, I started digging into Madison's life. I'd always known she lived beyond her means. Designer clothes despite working a mid-level job in PR. A luxury apartment in a neighborhood she shouldn't afford. Regular trips to Europe. Our parents helped her financially. That wasn't a secret. But the amounts never quite added up. I called my dad's accountant. We'd met at family gatherings, and he'd always been friendly. "Hey, Tom. Quick question. I'm helping Mom and Dad organize some paperwork for tax season. Do you have copies of the financial support they've been giving Madison? Just want to make sure everything matches up." He hesitated. Emily, I probably shouldn't discuss your sister's finances without your parents' permission. It's for their records, not hers. They asked me to help sort through everything. The lie came easier than I expected. Another pause. Then, okay,
Give me your email.
but this stays between us. The files arrived an hour later. I opened them expecting to see generous parental support. What I found instead made my blood run cold. Madison hadn't just been receiving money from our parents. She'd been taking it. Forged signatures on loan documents. Credit cards opened in Dad's name. Even a second mortgage on their house that they clearly didn't know about. The payments were being automatically deducted from their account, labeled as property management fees. Over the past 4 years, Madison had stolen nearly $200,000 from our parents. I sat back in my office chair, staring at the numbers. This was bigger than wedding sabotage. This was criminal fraud. And suddenly, I understood why Madison was so desperate to destroy me now. I was getting married, starting a life that didn't revolve around family drama. Soon, I'd be less involved in family finances, less likely to notice discrepancies. But more than that, Ryan worked in finance. If he and I ever helped my parents with their accounts, he'd spot the irregularities immediately. Madison wasn't just trying to ruin my wedding out of spite. She was protecting herself. I added the financial documents to my presentation, created a second section that detailed every fraudulent transaction, made sure the evidence was airtight. Then I practiced, rehearsed staying calm while delivering information that would shatter my family. Worked on my facial expressions in the bathroom mirror until I could maintain composure even while discussing betrayal. Ryan noticed I was distracted. "You okay?" he asked one night, pulling me close. "You seem tense." I rested my head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat. "Just wedding nerves," I said. "It's a big day. We can simplify things if it's too much stress. None of the details matter as much as marrying you." God, I loved him. "No, everything's perfect," I assured him. "I promise." 1 week before the wedding, Madison sent a text. "Can't wait for next Saturday. It's going to be a day no one forgets." I typed back, "I'm counting on it." The morning of October 15th arrived with perfect autumn weather. I woke up at 6, sunlight streaming through the hotel room curtains. Ryan had stayed at a different hotel the night before, tradition and all that. My bridesmaids were already awake, chattering excitedly in the adjoining room. I should have been nervous. Most brides are. Instead, I felt eerily calm, like an athlete before a championship game, knowing they've prepared for every possible scenario. My phone buzzed. A text from Madison: "Morning, bride. Today's the day. See you at the venue. I have everything ready for my speech. You're going to love it." I stared at those words. The arrogance. The certainty that she'd won before the game even started. I texted back, "Can't wait." My maid of honor, Kai, poked her head through the doorway. "You ready for hair and makeup?"
Yeah.
"Let me just grab coffee first." The next 3 hours passed in a blur of preparation. Curling irons, foundation brushes, pins securing my veil. My bridesmaids took photos, laughed about old memories, tried to distract me with stories about their own relationship disasters. I smiled and nodded, but my mind was elsewhere, running through the plan, checking for holes. At 11, we loaded into cars headed for the vineyard. The venue was 40 minutes outside the city, tucked into rolling hills covered in grapevines. The leaves had turned deep red and gold, creating a backdrop that looked like something from a magazine. Guests were already arriving, cars lining the gravel driveway, people in suits and dresses gathering near the ceremony space. I spotted Ryan's parents, my college roommate, cousins I hadn't seen in years. Everyone smiling, excited, completely unaware of what Madison had planned. Or what I had planned in response. Bethany met me at the bridal suite, a converted barn overlooking the vineyard. "Everything's set up exactly as you requested," she said quietly, handing me a small remote. "This controls the projection system. Just press the green button when you're ready." I slipped it into a hidden pocket in my dress. "Thank you." And Madison set up. She came by an hour ago to test her presentation. She has access to the microphone during the ceremony, just like she asked. Perfect. At noon, guests started taking their seats. White chairs arranged in rows, facing an arch decorated with autumn flowers. The string quartet began playing soft classical music. I watched from the window of the bridal suite as people settled in. Ryan's college friends in the third row, my marketing team colleagues on the left side, and in the back, standing rather than sitting, was Madison. She wore a deep burgundy dress that technically followed the fall colors dress code, but somehow managed to draw attention anyway. Her hair was perfect, makeup flawless. She looked confident, excited. She was holding a small stack of note cards. My mother approached her, said something I couldn't hear. Madison smiled, nodded, gestured toward the front. Mom laughed and patted her arm before finding her seat. Mom had no idea her golden child was about to detonate a bomb. At 12:30, the wedding coordinator knocked on my door. It's time. My bridesmaids lined up. The music shifted to the processional. One by one, they walked down the aisle. Then it was just me and my father in the doorway. Dad looked at me with tears already forming. You look beautiful, sweetheart. Thanks, Dad. You nervous? I thought about the remote hidden in my dress, about the presentation loaded and ready, about Madison standing in the back with her note cards, counting down the minutes until she could destroy me. No, I said honestly. I'm exactly where I need to be. The music changed to the bridal march. Dad offered his arm, and we started walking. The aisle felt longer than it had during rehearsal. Every step brought me closer to Ryan, who stood at the altar looking at me like I was the only person in the world. His eyes were bright, his smile genuine. This was supposed to be our moment, the day we promised forever to each other. And Madison was about to try to take that away. I reached the altar. Dad kissed my cheek, placed my hand in Ryan's, and stepped back. The officiant began. Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today. I barely heard the words. I was too aware of Madison behind me, waiting for her moment. Too focused on staying calm. Ryan squeezed my hand gently. You okay? He whispered. Perfect, I whispered back. The ceremony continued. Readings from Ryan's sister. A poem about love and partnership. Then the vows. Ryan went first, his voice steady and clear. Promises about choosing me every day, supporting my dreams, being my partner through whatever came. When it was my turn, I looked into his eyes and spoke from my heart. Promised him honesty, loyalty, and a love that wouldn't break under pressure. I promised to always tell you the truth, I said, the words carrying more weight than anyone knew. Even when it's hard. Even when it costs me something. Ryan's eyes glistened. The officiant smiled. By the power vested in me. That's when Madison stood up. The movement was sharp, deliberate. Chairs creaked as people turned to look. The string quartet faltered mid-note. The officiant stopped speaking, confusion crossing his face. And in the sudden, terrible silence, Madison's voice rang out across the vineyard. Stop. She cheated on you, Ryan. She's been lying to everyone. 200 guests froze. Ryan's hand went rigid in mine. His face shifted from confusion to shock to something that looked like betrayal. My mother gasped. Ryan's father half rose from his seat. And Madison stood there in the back, breathing hard, her face flushed with righteous anger and something else. Triumph. She thought she'd won. I let the silence stretch for 5 long seconds. Let her words echo across the vineyard. Let everyone absorb the accusation. Then, very slowly, I turned to face her. Go ahead, I said, my voice carrying in the stillness. Say what you came here to say. Madison's eyes widened slightly. She hadn't expected me to give her permission. She recovered quickly, stepping forward into the aisle. I'm sorry to do this here, but I couldn't stay silent any longer. Her voice had that perfect blend of regret and determination, like she was making a painful but necessary choice. She'd rehearsed this. Emily has been unfaithful to Ryan. I have proof. She held up her note cards like they were evidence in a trial. For the past 6 months, she's been seeing someone else. A co-worker named Trevor Hoskins. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Ryan's grip on my hand loosened. Madison. My mother started to stand, but Dad pulled her back down. Let me finish, Madison said, her voice rising. I know this is hard to hear, but Ryan deserves the truth before he makes the biggest mistake of his life. She started walking down the aisle, note cards in hand, playing to the audience like a prosecutor delivering a closing argument. 3 months ago, Emily told Ryan she had to work late on a Thursday. But she wasn't at work. Madison paused for effect. She was at a hotel bar in downtown Hartford with Trevor. I have the credit card receipt. She held up a printed document. From where I stood, I could see it was indeed a receipt from the Marriott. My receipt from a client dinner that Trevor had also attended, along with 4 other colleagues. In July, she took a weekend trip to New York. Told Ryan it was for a marketing conference. Madison's voice dripped with false sympathy. There was no conference that weekend. I checked. More gasps. Ryan's best man looked uncomfortable. Several guests were already pulling out their phones. I remained perfectly still, watching Madison perform. She's been deleting text messages, changing her passwords, coming home late and blaming it on projects that don't exist. Madison turned to face Ryan directly. I'm so sorry, but you need to know who you're really marrying. Ryan's face had gone pale. He looked at me, searching for denial or explanation. I said nothing, just waited. Emily. His voice cracked on my name. Is any of this true? Before I could respond, Madison jumped in. Of course she'll deny it. That's what liars do. She held up her phone. But I have proof. Text messages. Photos. Even a statement from someone who's seen them together. She'd moved to the front now, standing just a few feet from the altar. Close enough that I could see the excitement in her eyes, barely masked by fake concern. I didn't want to believe it either, Madison continued, addressing the crowd now. She's my sister. I wanted to be wrong. But the evidence is overwhelming. My mother was crying. Ryan's mother had her hand over her mouth. The officiant stood frozen, clearly having no protocol for this situation. Madison turned back to Ryan. I know this hurts. But isn't it better to know now than after you've signed the papers? Than after you've built a life with someone who doesn't respect you? She was good. I had to give her that. The performance was flawless. The concerned sister, torn between family loyalty and moral duty. The reluctant truth-teller who just couldn't stay quiet. If I didn't know better, I might have believed her myself. Ryan's hand had completely dropped from mine now. He took a step back, his eyes searching my face for answers. Emily, please tell me this isn't true. The vineyard had gone completely silent. 200 people holding their breath, waiting for my response. Madison smiled slightly, thinking she'd already won. Thinking I'd crumble under the public accusation, break down crying, maybe even run. That's what the old Emily would have done. The invisible daughter who'd spent her whole life shrinking to make Madison look bigger. But I wasn't that person anymore. I took a slow breath, reaching into the hidden pocket of my dress. You're right about one thing, Madison, I said calmly. The truth needs to come out. Her smile faltered. Just slightly. Everyone here deserves to know who they're really dealing with. I pulled out the small remote Bethany had given me. Madison's eyes locked onto it. Her face shifted from confidence to confusion to the first flicker of fear. What is that? She asked. You wanted to give a presentation, I said. So, let's give one. I pressed the green button. The projection screen behind the altar, the one Madison had requested for her surprise speech, flickered to life. But instead of her carefully crafted slideshow of lies, my presentation loaded. The first slide was simple. Just a title in large black letters. The real story. Madison lunged forward. Stop, you can't. But two of Ryan's groomsmen stepped into the aisle, gently blocking her path. They'd seen enough drama to know something bigger was happening. The second slide appeared. An email. Madison's email to Vanessa, dated 2 months ago. I need your help with something. My sister is marrying a man who's too good for her. The crowd leaned forward, reading. Madison's face drained of color. That's taken out of context, she stammered. The third slide appeared. Another email. Then another. The entire conversation between Madison and Ryan's ex, showing the systematic construction of a false narrative. People were reading faster now, gasps and whispers building. My mother stood up, staring at the screen in horror. Madison, what is this? It's not what it looks like. Madison's voice pitched higher. She's manipulating. The slides kept advancing automatically. Every fabricated piece of evidence Madison had created, shown alongside the real explanation. The hotel receipt with all 6 names from the client dinner. The New York conference registration that Madison claimed didn't exist. Screenshots of my work calendar proving every suspicious late night. Ryan moved closer to me, his hand finding mine again. You knew, he breathed. You knew she was going to do this. I nodded, not taking my eyes off Madison. Her performance had completely shattered. She was frantically looking between the screen, the crowd, and the exit, like a trapped animal searching for escape. Turn it off, she screamed at Bethany, who stood by the AV booth, looking shocked. I said turn it off. But the presentation continued. And we hadn't even gotten to the best part yet. The next slide appeared, and the atmosphere in the vineyard shifted from shock to something darker. But that's not all. Madison went very still. She knew. Somehow, she knew what was coming next. "Emily, stop," she said, her voice dropping to something quiet and dangerous. "You don't want to do this." "Actually," I said, "I really do." The financial documents appeared on screen. Bank statements, loan applications, credit card bills, all bearing my father's forged signature. The crowd went silent in a different way now. This wasn't wedding drama anymore. This was something else entirely. My father stood up slowly, his eyes fixed on the screen. "What am I looking at?" "Those are your financial records from the past 4 years," I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "The ones Madison has been manipulating." The slides advanced, each one more damaging than the last. A loan for $60,000, taken out in Dad's name, payments coming from his account. He'd never signed for it. Credit cards opened using his information, charges for luxury purchases he'd never authorized. And the crown jewel, a second mortgage on my parents' house, labeled as property management fees to avoid detection. "Madison has stolen nearly $200,000 from our parents over the past 4 years, I said. Each word felt like dropping stones into still water. "She's been using their credit, forging signatures, and hiding the evidence." Mom's hand went to her throat. She looked at Madison like she was seeing a stranger. Dad's face had turned red.
"Madison."
"Tell me this isn't real." Madison's mouth opened and closed. For the first time in her life, she had no response. No charming deflection. No way to spin this into someone else's fault. "You don't understand," she started. "Then explain it." Ryan's father stood up now. He was a retired attorney, and his voice carried the weight of someone who'd spent decades in courtrooms. "Explain how your name appears on withdrawal records for accounts you shouldn't have access to." The slide changed again, this time showing a pattern of ATM withdrawals, all made in Madison's neighborhood, all from Dad's account. "I was going to pay it back," Madison said desperately. "It was just temporary." "Temporary for 4 years?" I asked. She spun toward me, and for just a second, I saw pure hatred in her eyes. Not the masked version she usually showed.
"The real thing."
"You had no right to go through my private information." "You mean the information you stole from our parents?" I kept my voice level. "The fraud you committed using their identities?" Several guests were on their phones now. I could see Ryan's uncle, a police detective, typing something quickly. Madison must have seen it too, because panic replaced the anger on her face. "This is ridiculous," she said, her voice rising. "Emily's just trying to deflect from her own infidelity by making up lies about me." "Then explain the documents," Dad said.
His voice was shaking.
"Those are my accounts, Madison. My signature. Except I never signed anything." "You did. You just don't remember." "I remember everything about my finances," Dad said coldly. "I'm an accountant. It's literally my job." The crowd was watching like this was a scripted drama, except the horror on everyone's faces was real. Mom had sat back down, her hands covering her face. Her shoulders shook with silent sobs. Madison looked at her, then at Dad, then at the 200 witnesses watching her unravel. "You're all believing her over me?" Her voice cracked. "I'm the one who tried to protect this family. I'm the one who cared enough to tell the truth about Emily's cheating." "Except I didn't cheat," I said quietly. "And you know that. You fabricated everything because you couldn't stand watching me be happy." "That's not. You've spent your entire life making me feel small so you could feel big," I continued. "And when I finally found something you couldn't take away, someone who loved me for who I am, you tried to destroy it." Ryan's hand tightened around mine. "But the real reason you wanted to ruin my wedding wasn't just jealousy," I said. "It was self-preservation. Because Ryan works in finance. And eventually, he would have helped my parents with their accounts. He would have found the discrepancies. You needed me gone before that happened." The logic clicked into place for everyone watching. I could see it on their faces. The moment they understood this wasn't just sibling rivalry. Madison had tried to destroy me to cover up a crime. "I want everyone out," Madison said suddenly, her voice sharp. "This is a private family matter." "You made it public the second you stood up and accused me in front of 200 people," I said. "You wanted a spectacle, Madison. You wanted everyone to watch me get humiliated. So now they get to watch the truth instead." She took a step toward me, and Ryan immediately moved between us. "Don't," he said simply. Madison looked at him, then at me behind him, and something broke in her expression. "I'm your sister," she said, and for the first time, her voice sounded small.
Young.
How could you do this to me? The audacity of that question, after everything she'd done, almost made me laugh. How could I? I repeated. Madison, you tried to destroy my marriage based on lies. You've been stealing from our parents for years. You've spent our entire lives making me feel worthless. And you want to know how I could expose you? I took a breath, steadying myself. The better question is, why did it take me this long? Silence. Then my father spoke, his voice cold and formal in a way I'd never heard before. Madison, I think you need to leave.
Dad. Now.
Before I call the police myself. Ryan's uncle stood up, phone already in hand. Actually, Grant, I think we should go ahead and make that call. This is fraud. Identity theft. It needs to be reported officially. Madison's eyes went wide. You can't, I'm family. You stopped being family the moment you forged my signature, Dad said. Two of the groomsmen moved toward Madison. She looked around wildly, searching for an ally, someone who'd defend her. She found no one. Everyone was staring at her with varying expressions of disgust, shock, or pity. This isn't over, she hissed at me as the groomsmen gently but firmly guided her toward the exit. You think you've won, but everyone will see through this eventually. They'll know you're lying. They can see the evidence themselves, I said calmly. That's the difference between your story and mine. Mine has proof. Madison tried to wrench free, reaching for the microphone stand. You're all being manipulated. She's been planning this. The venue security staff had arrived now, taking over from the groomsmen. Ma'am, you need to leave the property, one of them said firmly. Madison's final scream echoed across the vineyard as they escorted her out. You'll regret this, Emily. All of you will regret this. Then she was gone. The silence that followed felt like the aftermath of a storm. For a long moment, nobody moved. 200 guests sat frozen, processing what they'd just witnessed. The projection screen still displayed Madison's financial crimes, the numbers stark and undeniable against the white backdrop. My mother broke the silence with a sound that was half sob, half gasp. Dad moved to her side immediately, wrapping his arm around her shoulders. She buried her face against his chest, her whole body shaking. I didn't know, she kept saying. I didn't know. Ryan's uncle was already on the phone with someone official, speaking in low tones. Words like fraud, forgery, and investigation drifted across the vineyard. The officiant cleared his throat awkwardly. Should we continue the ceremony? Or perhaps reconvene later? I looked at Ryan. His face was pale, but his jaw was set with determination. What do you want to do? He asked me quietly. What did I want? I just exposed my sister's crimes in front of everyone we knew. My mother was sobbing. My father looked 10 years older than he had an hour ago. The day had already been shattered into pieces. But Madison hadn't won. She'd tried to take this moment from me, and she'd failed. I want to get married, I said. Ryan's expression softened. He cupped my face in his hands. Then let's get married. He turned to the officiant. We'd like to continue. If that's okay with everyone. The officiant nodded slowly. Of course. Whenever you're ready. But before we could resume, my father stood up. Wait, he said, his voice rough. I need to say something. He walked toward the altar, his steps heavy. When he reached me, his eyes were red-rimmed. Emily, I owe you an apology. His voice cracked. For years, your mother and we didn't see what was happening. We thought Madison was just confident, successful. We didn't realize she was. He couldn't finish the sentence. Dad. Let me say this. He took a shaky breath. We failed you. We let Madison overshadow you. We believed her lies so easily because we wanted to believe our family was perfect. And you suffered for it. Tears burned behind my eyes. You could have exposed her privately, Dad continued. Could have told us in secret, handled this quietly. But she didn't give you that choice, did she? She forced your hand by trying to destroy you publicly. He pulled me into a hug, and I felt him trembling. I'm so proud of you, he whispered. And I'm so sorry it took this long for me to say it. When he pulled back, Mom had joined us. Her makeup was ruined, mascara streaking her cheeks. I knew something was wrong, she said, her voice barely audible. Deep down, I knew Madison was different. But I told myself I was being paranoid. That I was comparing you unfairly. She touched my face gently. You deserved better than that. Better than us choosing to be blind. Around us, guests were quietly crying. Several of my cousins had moved closer, forming a protective circle. Ryan's mother approached, her expression serious. "Emily, I need you to know something," she said. "3 weeks ago, Madison called me. She said she was worried about you, that you'd been acting strangely. She tried to plant doubts about your relationship with Ryan." My stomach tightened. I didn't believe her. Ryan's mom continued quickly. "Something felt off about the way she was talking. But I want you to know how far she was willing to go. She tried to turn me against you." Ryan's best man stepped forward next. "She did the same thing to me. Asked if I'd noticed you being distant with Ryan. I thought she was just being weird." One by one, people began admitting that Madison had approached them. Ryan's college friends, my work colleagues, even distant relatives. She'd been systematic, thorough, planting seeds everywhere, building a web of suspicion designed to make her wedding day accusation seem credible. "How long was she planning this?" Ryan asked, his voice tight with anger. "At least 2 months," I said. "Maybe longer." He shook his head slowly. "And you dealt with this alone."
You didn't tell me.
I couldn't risk her finding out I knew. If she'd changed her plan, she would have found another way to hurt you, he finished. "I understand. I just wish." He pulled me close. "I hate that you had to carry this by yourself." "I wasn't going to let her win," I said simply. Kai, my maid of honor, appeared with tissues for Mom. Several other bridesmaids were helping to discreetly manage the crying guests. The venue coordinator approached cautiously. "Whenever you're ready to continue, we can resume. Or if you'd prefer to postpone." "No postponing," I said firmly. "We're doing this now. Because that's what this day was supposed to be about. Not Madison's crimes or her desperate attempt to destroy me. Not family dysfunction or years of overlooked abuse. It was supposed to be about Ryan and me choosing each other. And I wasn't letting Madison take that away." The officiant returned to his position. The guests settled back into their seats, though the atmosphere had shifted entirely. This was no longer just a wedding. It was something else. A reclamation. A declaration. Mom and Dad returned to their seats, holding hands tightly. Ryan took both my hands in his, and I saw something new in his eyes. Not just love, but respect. Understanding. He'd seen me handle the worst moment of my life with calculated precision, and instead of being frightened by that strength, he admired it. "Ready?" the officiant asked gently. "Ready," I said. "By the power vested in me by the state of Massachusetts," he began again, "and in the presence of these witnesses, I now pronounce you husband and wife." He paused, a small smile forming. "Ryan, you may kiss your bride." When Ryan kissed me, the vineyard erupted in applause. Not the polite, expected applause of a normal wedding. Something louder. More cathartic. People were standing, cheering, some still crying but smiling through it. Because this wasn't just about a wedding anymore. It was about truth winning over deception. About the overlooked sister finally being seen. About a family confronting the darkness they'd enabled for too long. As we walked back down the aisle together, husband and wife, I caught glimpses of faces in the crowd. Relief. Admiration. Shock. Support. And in the very back, near the exit Madison had been escorted through, I saw Ryan's uncle still on his phone. Still coordinating with the authorities. The legal consequences were just beginning for Madison. But for me, this chapter was closing. The reception that followed was unlike any wedding celebration I'd ever attended. The catering staff had transformed the barn into something beautiful. String lights, autumn decorations, tables arranged around a small dance floor. But the energy was strange. Electric. People spoke in hushed clusters, still processing what they'd witnessed. Ryan and I made our entrance to applause, but it quickly dissolved into concerned friends and family approaching us. "Are you okay?" seemed to be the question on everyone's lips. "I'm fine," I said again and again. "Really? I'm fine." And the strange thing was I meant it. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel like I was living in Madison's shadow. I'd stepped out of it completely, into full sunlight. Dad found me during the cocktail hour. He looked exhausted, aged by the day's revelations. "The detective wants to talk to us tomorrow," he said quietly. "They're opening a formal investigation. They'll need access to all our financial records." "I have copies of everything," I told him. "I'll send them tonight." He studied my face. "How long have you known about the money?" 3 weeks. I started digging after I found the emails about the wedding. 3 weeks. He shook his head. "You've been carrying this for 3 weeks." I needed to be sure. And I needed the evidence to be airtight. Your sister is going to face criminal charges. He said it like he still couldn't believe it. I know. Your mother is devastated. She keeps saying she should have seen the signs. I felt a pang of guilt, but pushed it away. Madison made her choices, Dad. We didn't force her to steal. We didn't force her to try to destroy my wedding. No, he agreed. But we created an environment where she thought she could get away with anything. He paused. That's going to haunt us. Mom appeared then, eyes still red but makeup repaired. She'd pulled herself together with visible effort. People are asking about Madison, she said. What do we tell them? The truth, I said. That she's being investigated for fraud. Mom flinched but nodded. And the rest? The wedding accusation. That was fabricated. I have the proof. Anyone who asks can see it. She touched my arm gently. I'm sorry we made you feel invisible for so long. I know. I don't think you do. Her voice strengthened. I replayed every family dinner, every holiday, every moment we praised Madison, and overlooked you. It's going to take me a long time to forgive myself for that. Then start now, I said. Be present for the rest of tonight. That's what I need. She hugged me tightly, and for once, it felt genuine. The dinner service began. Speeches were given, though notably, there was no sister of the bride toast. Ryan's best man kept his remarks light and funny, carefully avoiding any mention of the ceremony's disruption. But Kai, my maid of honor, went a different direction. I've known Emily for 8 years, she said, standing with a microphone. And I've watched her be the person everyone could rely on. The friend who showed up. The colleague who stayed late to help. The daughter who never complained about being overlooked. The room went quiet. Today, I watched her refuse to be a victim. Kai's voice wavered slightly. Someone tried to take away her happiness, and instead of crumbling, she stood her ground. That takes a kind of strength most of us never have to access. She raised her glass. To Emily and Ryan. May you always face challenges together the way Emily faced today, with clarity, courage, and an absolutely savage presentation. Laughter rippled through the crowd, breaking the tension. People drank, clinked glasses. And slowly, gradually, the reception began to feel more like a celebration and less like the aftermath of an explosion. Ryan and I had our first dance to a song about new beginnings. His hands were steady on my waist. You know you're terrifying, right? He murmured as we swayed. Is that a problem? Are you kidding? It's the hottest thing I've ever seen. He grinned. Remind me never to cross you. Just don't try to destroy my life in front of 200 people and we'll be fine. He laughed, pulling me closer.
Deal.
As the night wore on, guests loosened up. The bar helped. The music helped. The fact that everyone had witnessed something they'd be talking about for years helped. Around 10 p.m., my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. I opened it. You're going to pay for this. You think you've won, but you have no idea what you've started. Madison. I showed it to Ryan. He immediately flagged one of his groomsmen, a cybersecurity specialist, who took screenshots and forwarded them to the detective. That's harassment, he said. And it's evidence of intent. Madison was still trying to fight, still refusing to accept that she'd lost. But her threats felt hollow now. Desperate. I deleted the message and put my phone away. The rest of the night belonged to me. 3 months have passed since the wedding. I still get questions about it. Friends who weren't there ask me to tell the story. Colleagues whisper about it in break rooms. Someone even asked if they could write an article about it for a local magazine. I declined. Some stories don't need to be told beyond the people who lived them. Madison was charged with multiple counts of fraud and identity theft. The investigation uncovered even more than I'd found. She'd also taken out a personal loan using Dad's credit, applied for government assistance under false pretenses, and opened accounts at 3 different banks. The total amount stolen exceeded $300,000. She hired a lawyer who tried to argue that this was a family misunderstanding. That argument lasted approximately 1 court appearance before the judge shut it down. Last I heard, she's looking at a plea deal that involves restitution, probation, and possibly jail time. Her lawyer is pushing for community service and mandatory therapy instead. I don't follow the case closely anymore. Dad sends updates occasionally, but I've learned to keep boundaries. Mom struggled the most with everything. She kept asking what she'd missed, what she should have done differently. Her therapist, yes, she started seeing one, told her she'd been dealing with a narcissistic daughter for years without recognizing the pattern. That helped her somehow, having a name for it. She calls me more often now. Real calls, where she asks about my life instead of talking about Madison's accomplishments. It's strange. Good, but strange. Dad apologized approximately 15 more times before I finally told him to stop. He's been helping me and Ryan look at investment properties, teaching me about financial planning, treating me like someone whose future matters. Turns out, being seen by your parents in your late 20s is unexpectedly emotional. Ryan and I are living in a small house in Connecticut, close enough to the city for his work, but far enough out that we have actual trees in our yard. We talk about the wedding sometimes, usually late at night when we can't sleep. Do you regret how you handled it? He asked me last week. I thought about it.
Really thought about it.
No, I said finally. Madison made a choice to destroy me publicly. I just returned the favor with truth instead of lies. Some people think you went too far. I know, and they're entitled to that opinion. Does it bother you? A little, I admitted. But what bothers me more is the idea that I should have protected her. That I should have quietly confronted her, given her a chance to explain or apologize. Because here's the thing, she had years to stop. Years to come clean about the money, years to work on herself, years to be a decent sister. I rolled over to face him.
She didn't want to change.
She wanted to win. And the only way to stop someone like that is to make the cost of their behavior too high to ignore. Ryan was quiet for a moment. I'm glad I married you. Even though I'm terrifying? Especially because you're terrifying. I got a message from Kai yesterday. She'd run into someone from the wedding, a distant cousin I barely knew, who told her that watching me handle Madison had inspired her to confront her own toxic sister. You started something, Kai wrote. People are talking about what it means to set boundaries with family. About not protecting people who hurt you just because you share DNA. I don't know how I feel about being an inspiration. It wasn't my goal. My goal was just to survive my wedding day without letting Madison destroy it. But if other people saw something useful in that, if they learned that you don't have to accept abuse quietly just because it comes from family, then maybe something good came from all of it. I'm not in contact with Madison.
I don't plan to be.
Some people think that's cruel. That family should forgive family, that everyone deserves second chances. But second chances are for people who acknowledge their first mistakes. Madison never did. Even after everything, even facing criminal charges, she maintains she was trying to help me. Trying to save Ryan from making a mistake. She's rewritten the narrative in her head where she's the hero. And I've decided that's not my problem to fix. I spent 27 years trying to earn Madison's approval, trying to be good enough to deserve my parents' attention, trying to shrink myself so others could feel bigger.
I'm done with that now.
Ryan's making coffee downstairs. I can smell it drifting up through the vents. Soon, we'll have breakfast together, talk about our plans for the weekend, live the quiet life that Madison tried to take from me. People ask if I'm happy now. The answer is complicated. I'm healing, learning who I am when I'm not defined by someone else's shadow. Building a life that's mine.
But yeah.
For the first time in a long time, I'm happy. And Madison can't touch that. Last week, someone asked me if I'd change anything about that day. If I could go back, would I handle it differently? I thought about the projection screen, the shocked faces, Madison being escorted out while screaming threats. No, I said. I stayed silent while she built her trap. I just never told her I was standing on the other side. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't doing anything at all. It's letting someone destroy themselves while you remain calm, prepared, and untouchable. And then moving on with your life like they were never strong enough to break you in the first place. Because they weren't.